Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this episode of Help 100 Schools. Today is going to be another very interesting and I think somewhat different episode because knowing what we're about to get into, it's different, it's exciting, it's a little scary, and it's all too real these days, but it's definitely important. So before I properly introduce my guest today, Leigh Toomey, I just want to say that we met somewhat recently at an industry event, and I found her energy and story so compelling. She puts out a lot of positivity and curiosity while also all the while staying focused on being helpful. And wait till you hear the story that she has to share today. So with that, we will get started. Welcome to Help 100 Schools. As a professional in education dedicated to expanding enrollment, you're already a fundamental part of this movement. We are here together to amplify the positive ripple effect that comes from advancing education. We're committed to keeping listeners inspired with timely lessons, valuable stories, and insights from brilliant minds and dedicated hosts. Our mission is a collective effort. Together, let's make a difference in spirit and in action to help 100 schools grow. Leigh, welcome to the show.
Hi, Karl. How are you? That was quite the introduction. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's genuine, and very happy to have you here today. And there's a lot going on in your life. It's knowing what I know about it. You've launched a new business. You're moving to a new chapter in your career and honoring the chapters that you've had. It's really an exciting time. So I'm grateful that you could spend some time with us and share your insights. And given that, how about we talk just a little bit about the sort of salient points of your career so far that brought us here?
Sure.
Perfect.
Well,
Well, my memory's not perfect, but I know you've been ahead of school. I know that you're now focusing heavily on women's leadership in schools, but I don't feel that I can do it justice. And I know neither of us like reading bios to the audience, but given the crystallization of what we're about to talk about, what do you think are the salient points of your history?
I would definitely say I would think the salient points of my history go way back, to be honest with you. I'm not the usual educator, right? The route to where I've ended up isn't the usual trajectory that most people incur. I actually started in business. So I have an MBA, and then I was in sales and marketing for a while and started my own for-profit businesses as well as a not-for-profit. My daughter and I actually started a not-for-profit when she was 7 years old. Always wanted to be a teacher. And so when I had the opportunity to really kind of change my career, I decided that I was going to do it. I was going to go back to school and I was going to become a teacher. From there, I went back to school. I got my MST, or Master's in Teaching, and then I taught for a little while. During that time, I've had a lot of mentors in my life, really great mentors. And I met a wonderful man, Mike Johnson, who encouraged me to marry my love of business with my passion of education and pursue administration. And because I really respected his guidance that he gave me, I looked into it and decided that would be a good path for me. So I went back to school again and got a master's in education, in leadership education, and became an administrator in schools. And I've done several things in schools. I haven't been just a head of school. That's kind of where I've ended. I started as an assistant head of school, and I actually was also the business director at that school. I've also been a middle school head. I've been an interim fine arts director, and then sort of transitioned my way to becoming a head of school.
That is an unusual journey, isn't it?
It's a very unusual journey. Every time I tell that story to someone, people usually refer to me as a unicorn, because normally what you'll find, right, what you'll find is that someone will come up through the academic track. And so they would have been a teacher or a team leader or have gone in that direction, or they come from the administrative side of running a school. So it is kind of rare to find somebody that has an understanding of both worlds.
Right. Absolutely. Okay. And, framing up I'm not going to make a big reveal here, but I guess we do kind of need to introduce the topic, which is really related to a more modern crisis management. Is that how you're feeling it as well?
Yeah, right. So when I think about the business that I'm now in, and that's sort of empowering women leaders to step into these leadership roles in independent schools, and the gap of not having a background knowledge in the administrative side of running a school, there's a lot of things there, whether it's marketing, admissions, reading budgets, fundraising, working with boards, the list goes on and on. But the topic that you and I started to have a conversation earlier about was crisis management and how important it is for you to understand what that actually looks like for a school and your role in that. And so that's kind of how we got on this topic of crisis management. And at that time, I shared with you that I was a head of school during the Covenant School shooting in 2023 in Nashville, Tennessee.
Right. Which is incredible to be that close. It's kind of hard for somebody to really even understand and identify with that, I think, from my own perspective. But I mean, I think that is the perspective that you're telling, right? So what was that like?
So, and thank you for acknowledging that. This is actually a difficult topic to talk about because when I do talk about it, it sort of brings me back to that day. And not that I don't like to revisit, I don't like to revisit that day, but I think it's important that we do, especially in this current climate of school shootings that have become sort of commonplace in America. So, it's important that if I can share just one or two pieces of information from my own journey and help someone else that may or may not incur that situation, then it's worth talking about. So, yes. So, I actually wasn't in the building when the initial communication came in that there was a school shooting. So, I actually was with my admissions director and we had to turn around and go back to the school. But it is very vivid in my memory. And walking into the school, I can still smell the smells of the hallway on that day. Making an announcement over a loudspeaker that we are in full lockdown, this is not a drill. I I mean, that's some serious stuff, right? I'm making this announcement over an intercom, right? And our school is going into a full lockdown because the Covenant School is 10 minutes from our school.
Wow.
So the second thing I did was text my family. So I texted my husband and my children and my sisters, and I said, "We are in a full lockdown. I have no other information but that I love you."
Wow.
That's number two. And then I walked that school and I checked every single door to make sure every single door was locked. And I don't think that parents or people even understand that teachers and administrators are the last to lock in. Now, knowing what I know, that was not the right decision on my part to do that because actually heads of schools, from what I'm understanding and have been told, in my conversations around this topic, should be the first to lock in because they're the leader of the school and they need to set up a command post and they need to be communicating with law enforcement officers. But your instinct, I'm a parent, a teacher, administrators are just teachers in disguise. The first thing you're going to do, it is just instinct, is you are going to make sure everyone else is safe. That's just what you're going to do. So I know that a million people can tell me I should be doing XYZ, but I know if I did it all over again, I would do the same thing. 1,000%.
Right.
Um, so luckily, that situation was handled very promptly. The Metro Police Force in Nashville responded immediately and handled that remarkably. So we were not in lockdown long and were able to come out of lockdown and then sort of address what had just happened and sort of process through what had just happened.
Sure. Okay. And now I'm borrowing from your pre show inspiration here that before we sort of distill the insights, we should probably say that we're not giving legal advice here. We're not, this is by no means a replacement for, proper security guidance and instructions. But I do want to make sure that we do distill your insights and articulate them because, as I mentioned before, this is a human side of the story that I think makes this all the more real and crystallizes in a way that's ultimately very helpful.
I would agree 100%. By no means am I an expert in crisis management and or lockdown procedures or response, law enforcement response protocol. I'm not an expert in any of that. I would dare say I'm more of an expert in, actually school settings, education, and those types of things, but definitely not this particular instance. So there really is a lot that sort of happens behind the scenes after these things occur. Right. So the first thing you really do is you gather your leadership team and you sort of process through what just transpired. You're in communication with, I don't want to jump all over the place. So maybe we can start with communication. Let's just start with
Sure,
that.
that's
Right.
great. Absolutely,
So,
please.
so during that entire process, you're communicating, right, with law enforcement. Most likely you're not communicating with parents because you're in a crisis situation. And I know, and trust me, I know as a mother, that is really hard. I want to communicate with parents that their children are okay, but you cannot tie up phone lines in case you need to be corresponding with law enforcement. Also, the first reaction is that parents want to go to the school. That is the worst thing they possibly could do. That's why there are reunification sites, right? Know your reunification site if you're a parent. If you're an administrator and you don't have one, get one. Because parents coming to the school, and again, all campuses are different, but they will clog up first responders being able to get to the scene if needed. So it's your natural instinct to want to go there and save your child and meet with your child, but let the school and first responders do their job. Let them do their job. You may save a child's life because you didn't park in front of the school. It's that basic. So you are communicating. You're communicating with your faculty. We communicated via text. You don't want to communicate over radio because someone in the building may hear you, right? So it was a lot of this text communication back and forth with faculty. And so knowing that there was protocol around ending the drill. That's the other thing you have to think about. I know this seems very minuscule and very specific, but ending the drill is also very important because you could be under duress. Someone could be in your office basically instructing you hostily to get on to the intercom and announce that the drill is ended, right? So there has to be protocol around an actual script, knowing that is this real or is this administrator making this announcement under duress, right? So that
Wow.
has to
Oh,
be
most people would
communicated,
not have thought of that.
right?
That's
That has to be communicated and talked about. And then it is communication. You're communicating with the board. In my instance, I was communicating with the board chair as well as the communications director who is on the board. So there's a lot of things happening sort of behind the scenes, right? I will say after the fact, it seems like information is vague and it trickles out. Please know that is not an effort to hide anything. The reason for that is because law enforcement is now involved in an active crime scene. And so communicating things, you may be jeopardizing the case, the law enforcement case, to be just quite frank. So there is a reason why it seems like it's a little short or it doesn't have a lot of specifics in it. It's because if you give out information that you shouldn't, you may jeopardize the investigation. It has nothing to do with the fact that schools don't want to tell you what's going on. We would tell you everything, right? I mean, schools are pretty transparent. There's really no secrets in schools. If we could tell you everything, we would, right? And then communications after the fact, right? So you'll obviously craft a communication with law enforcement, and then you would send that out to your community.
right. Yeah, that's the communication. I have to admit, what you shared some really interesting speaking points whenever we first met, and I'm so excited because it's like there's all of these really random things. It's the random points that you just wouldn't think of, that it's, oh, aha, that's so interesting, you wouldn't have thought of that, so the communication that you're not under duress and how to communicate that as a pillar is that's a good example. I don't want to give away any points for you, but some of related to what you do to prevent and logistically what you need to know in order to respond. Those are some of the pillars that I'm rather looking forward to. But I know that you've been putting some thought into this. So, what do you have another pillar in mind to address?
Oh, well, certainly what we learned after the fact was that we had some things that we needed to shore up for sure. And always facilities is the first thing you kind of gravitate to. So we were fortunate enough that we had a budget. We had a budget that we could hire experienced people to come and take a look at our facilities and basically tell us where some of our shortcomings were and how we could shore up certain areas of our campus. What you're trying to do when you talk about facilities is you're just trying to give law enforcement more time. If someone wants in your school, they're going to find a way in your school, but if you have to make it hard for them, most of these incidences are premeditated. They're scoping out your school, they're looking for weak points of entry. And so if you can kind of figure out what those are, establish what those are, and then shore those particular areas up, you're buying more time for law enforcement. So in our case, we had the following, this was crazy. I mean, it was just so, the timing of it was so crazy. The following week, we had our year gala, our biggest fundraiser of the year. And so in a week, we flipped our initiative of our gala to be safety protocol, right? And we raised a lot of money for our safety protocol. And so we did lots of different things, including fencing and, window coverings and we installed new PA systems. We changed all of the locks in our school to have push button locks on the inside of the classroom doors so that no one was fumbling with keys. I mean, it's kind of like you were talking about, those small nuances, like no one would have really thought about that, or swipe keys, right? But the fact that every lock from the inside of the classroom now had a lock that you could lock instantly was really important. So we ended up doing those types of things. We
How about
installed
the bushes?
the
And
bushes,
how
right?
the bushes, right? With the trim. Go ahead.
So trimming our bushes, because we found out that our bushes were too high
Wow.
and that an assailant could hide behind a bush, increasing the lighting around our campus. Looking at what we were doing on the inside, classroom setup, right? Where we had our desks in position to exits. Cement pillars, because as we just saw in Michigan, one of the two security professionals that we had come and look at our campus alerted us to the fact that this is the one point in your campus where a car could drive up and drive through into the building. And so we actually had to install, there's a reason why those balls out in front of Target are there. I mean, when you're at ground level, that was the one sort of pitch point at ground level where a car could actually drive into the building. So we had to install cement pillars there. And I want to sort of talk to the school that doesn't really have this type of funding. I will tell you that your local law enforcement and even your local fire department can come over if you ask them to come over and give you and take a look at your camp, walk the campus with you and take a look and give you ideas. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to go out and raise, $300,000 to do a lot of these things, but there are simple things that you can implement. And that's one of them, right? Just requesting your local municipalities to come and take a look at your campus is a start. And then at least you'll have some feedback from a professional as to what they think.
That's so
Um,
great. No one would, I mean, I should just say myself, but I wouldn't think about the bush height being a security issue, but
well,
that's
neither do
an
we. We thought
important
they looked
nuance.
beautiful.
Right.
Yeah, beautiful landscaping, right? But some, just little things you really need to just kind of think about. Yeah.
Absolutely. Wow. Well, are there other sort of practical takeaways that you think the school, the small school, the medium size, even to large school should do now?
Sure, absolutely. I would say if you were to take nothing else away from, and again, I would love to talk just a little bit about supporting your community too, right? Because it's not just
Please.
all about shoring up facilities. I mean, this is a traumatic event and sort of
Mhm.
implementing some things to support your children and to support your faculty and to support your parents and coming together as a community to kind of work through some of those things. But I would say if you are a small school and you do not have a budget to remotely hire anybody to help you through this process, to me, there's some really easy things you can do. And I can just give you four. Go to your website. Go to your website. If your campus map is on your website, take it off. The public does not need to know the layout. You're giving them the layout of your campus. They do not need to know it. If you have a website and it has a calendar, a daily calendar on there, make it only accessible to parents. I'm not talking about the master calendar that tells when the vacations are. I'm talking about your daily calendar that has what field trips are going where. When will your kids meet all together in the auditorium for that special speaker that's coming in? Right? No one needs to know that. The only people that need to know that are parents. That's it. Nobody else needs to know that. And faculty, of course. Let's see what else. Oh, compass directionals. Who would have thought you would ever have need to know this? But when you are conversing with law enforcement, they're not asking you where the art room is. They don't know where the art room is. What they need to know is north, south, east, and west. So you can say to law enforcement officers, we're on the south side of the building, second floor, 4 doors down. They know exactly where you are now. So it's really your next faculty meeting, make sure everyone in your building knows where north, south, east, and west are on your campus, right? Make a game out of it, do a scavenger hunt, make it fun, but make sure it's memorable so that people remember where they are, where the directionals of your school are.
Wow. Can you imagine in the typical room, classroom, wherever, if you ask 10 people which way is north, you're probably going to get a lot of different answers.
I didn't even know. I mean, I honestly didn't even know. I know
Because
now.
why, you wouldn't have thought why you would have had to know, right?
Mhm.
But now
Mhm.
you do. That's a great note of experience. Well, fantastic. You've gone through your 4 insights. Did you want to circle back to the community support?
I think it's important because supporting your community is huge in this particular, especially in Nashville. I'm not a native of Nashville, but I now live outside of Nashville. I will tell you, it's a city, but it's really not. It's communities that are linked by roadways, right? It really is. Nashville has this small town feel. So when something like this happens here, it's really like it's happening in a small community. Everyone knows everyone. All the teachers knew the teachers at that school. The kids knew the kids at that school. They're in prayer group together. There were a lot of things happening. So being able to support those people in that grief was important. We just happened to be a faith-based school. And so we had a chapel on campus. And that day, before we all went home, we went to the chapel and we all prayed together and we cried together because it was just crazy that this was happening in this neighborhood, right? And so the beautiful thing was that some students wanted to go to school. And so all of the Nashville schools opened up their schools to the Covenant School kids and said, if you want to come here, you come here. Tuition free, just come. So we actually had a couple students that came to our campus. And so because of that, we needed to make sure that the things we were doing were not triggering these poor children that had been through such a traumatic event. So I don't know how much you know about the Covenant shooting, but a fire alarm was involved in that particular incident. And so that was something we even had to discuss. We had to figure out, how are we going to have fire drills in our school with these children in our school so we're not creating a PTSD moment for these kids. So it's that care and nurturing of your community. I think that is so important. We had to have training, right? Now we're doing training for our faculty that involves disarming individuals, that involves, I mean, I'm just getting like real here, putting chokeholds on people to create a passing out situation. Who would have thought as a teacher when I decided I wanted to be around little kids and teach that I would now know how to disarm an individual, how to choke an individual out, trauma response. I know how to stop trauma bleeding on not just the torso, but extremities, which are 2 different things, by the way. Who would have thought that we would have had to have known these things, right? That training is traumatic.
I believe
Teachers
it.
leave that
It's
training
hard to hear and think about.
crying, right? So it's support. Yes, it's important to know, but holding your community together is really important. And that's the role as a leader of a school. You have to empathize and understand that this is an emotional topic. And so we need to know these things. I mean, what other profession besides I don't know, the military or law enforcement or first responders have to train in these things.
Right. And
I
what
mean,
percentage of teachers would expect that to have been part of their career 5, 10 years ago?
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's a statistic out there somewhere that
I'm sure.
indicates that, right? Yeah, it's a heavy topic, right? But I think it's an important topic. And again, if you can just make some of these simple changes to kind of how you do your daily routine and sort of, looking at your space, talking in your community, making sure that kids understand that your school is a safe school, right? But as an administrator, understanding that you also have to make sure that it doesn't turn into a prison because these
Mhm.
are schools and they're joyous places, right? And so, where is that balance as well?
Absolutely. Wow. Well, thank you for sharing this story. It's very interesting as a host to segue from that.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah, again,
but
it's a very heavy topic, but unfortunately a relevant topic.
right.
And
Well,
that's and again,
go
by no
ahead.
means am I an expert on, protocol around all of this. This is just my personal experience and all of the
Mhm.
information that I now know. And that's why in my business, when we talk about sort of all these administrative things, crisis management is also important and having protocol around crisis management. And crisis management just doesn't mean, I just want to clear this up too, just is not just school shootings, right? There's a lot
Sure.
of different aspects of crisis management. But most of it is about protecting your children and whatever the framework that looks like.
Absolutely. Wow. Well, that it's interesting and coming back full circle, I think through the eyes of a parent and the families and students and how they will sort of connect as a bridge. I'm thinking about, what else you're doing now to support female business owners and not, it's, pardon, it's more on the school side. So
Mhm.
I want to talk about that and I want to give you some time to talk about it, but knowing that you're helping female leaders in education. And interestingly, I don't know if I shared this with you, but not only am I the son of an educator, my father is a music teacher for 37 years, retired, still takes students, but he was so busy as a teacher and performing musician that I spent a lot of time with my mother, who mostly raised me. She was also an entrepreneur, for a brief period, a teacher. But I know that she would really appreciate what you're doing with your new company. So I'd love to sort of give you a chance to talk about what you're doing, why you're doing it, and how folks can get more involved with it.
Thank you. So this was also this was really wasn't a strategic thing. When I decided to leave education, I started to get a bunch of phone calls from women asking me questions about the business side of running schools. So it was a lot of questions around fundraising and admission cycles and marketing funnels and budgeting, right? And then communications with boards, right? How do I sort of manage up? I've got this new position and now I'm working with a board. I've never worked with a board before. And so there's all these nuances, but I'll be really, and I have to be honest, the way you approach things as a woman in leadership is substantially different than the way men approach things. And please don't take this as like a men bashing segment. By no means do I mean that. It's just reality, right? And so the way that women have to approach situations is a little bit different. And so there's nuances to being a woman. Having been my very first job right out of college after getting my MBA was I was a pharmaceutical sales rep and I was the only woman on an all male team for the entire East Coast. And so I had this idea in my head that I had to be one of the guys. So I would like wear pantsuits and laugh at jokes. And what I ended up realizing was what really made my sales soar was when I just started to embrace really who I was. Right. And I was a girl that liked to wear dresses and, sit in doctor's offices and talk about their families and find out about their kids and sort of all those things. So the approach was remarkably different. Also, when I was getting my degree, I was a handful of women pursuing an MBA at that time as well. So it was mostly a male kind of field. So I've been doing this for a while. And then education is, when you get into educational leadership, certainly when I started it's getting much better. But when I started, it was heavily dominated by men as well. And so just your approach is a little bit different. And so having those nuances, I started to think, boy, I bet I could help someone coming into this field who doesn't have this knowledge base. And so I wanted to become the mentor and the person that I wished I had when I entered this career. And so that's kind of what sparked this entire thing. You can obviously see it because in the name there is sandwiched in the middle of leadership is the word her. Not that I don't work with men, because I actually mentor and I tutor children as well. I do a lot of sort of service things outside of business. But I am
LeadHership Educational Solutions for those who are
correct.
listening only.
Yes.
LeadHership
LeadHership Educational Solutions. So I'm actually a certified executive leadership coach. So I do work with other individuals, but my primary focus is on women that have recently gotten into these positions or are aspiring to have these positions. And how can I help them be set up for success in that field?
Okay. And how are you helping them and how
Okay.
are you planning?
Well, so we do offer coaching, which is a little bit separate than consulting. Consulting and coaching are different things. I know people think that they're the same, but they're not. And we do offer consulting. So consulting is more specific based to education. So it would really be for someone who was new to the leadership role and wanted to have a person to bounce ideas off of or to talk about a particular situation through. Coaching is more along the lines of leadership skills. Like, how can I add to my portfolio some leadership skills? Where do I go from there? Right. And then we also have a cohort, which I'm really excited about. It goes through sort of all of these topics that I've just been talking about, but it actually is full. And so there is a wait list.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm actually a little humbled by it because I thought, I actually did a 6-month listening tour too before I decided to do all of this to find out if there was really a need for any of this. And the listening tour was remarkable. I spoke to so many people, both male and female, in education and out of education. And I walked away really being passionate and feeling like there is definitely a need for this. And if I can somehow give back, I'm thrilled to do that. So there is a wait list. So if you're interested in the next cohort, please reach out to me on my website, contact me, and I'll put you on that wait list. If I have enough people, I may run a second cohort consecutively. So it just depends on how many people are interested that I can pull off of the wait list. And I'm very excited about it. It'll be the first cohort I've done. I've led a lot of things, but I'm really excited about this because we'll be discussing specific topics and giving broad overviews to those topics so you can walk in a room and feel empowered as a woman. I might not know the specifics of that, but I have a general understanding of what you're talking about. So it eliminates a little bit of that imposter syndrome, as well as creating a community for women, because what you will find, and I think that this may be the same for men. I'm not really sure. I haven't really had a lot of conversation with men about this particular topic, but it is very isolating to be in leadership, especially as a head of school. I used to say, everyone wants to talk to you, but no one wants to talk to you. So, right, everybody wants to have your ear, but no one's really interested in kind of what's happening with you because you're basically solving problems for people. And so there is just sort of this isolation that comes along with the job. So if I can also create a network that women can leave the cohort and they've established 3 or 4 colleagues that they can talk to now and bounce ideas off of, what a great thing. So we're building community too. And then lastly, I haven't finished creating them yet, but I'm in the process of creating modules. So basically you could just go online and get a module. So if you only want to know how to read it, what's involved in a school budget, you can just go on and see that module in regards to a school budget. That's an interesting topic because a lot of times you get into these leadership positions having never seen a school budget. So and I'm saying that from personal experience. The only reason I knew how to navigate and understand a school budget was because I had an MBA in financing background knowledge. But if I had come up just from being a teacher and having never seen it, I would have no idea how to sit with a CFO and a finance committee to help create a budget.
That's extraordinary. You're covering a lot of bases there.
There's a lot. There's a
Kudos
lot
to you.
there. This is my point. I don't think people actually understand what happens in the administrative building. There's so many nuances. I mean, and there's so many things you need to know. I had a colleague of mine say to me once, she said, "Boy, you really know a little bit about a lot of stuff." And I said, "That sums up the head job in a nutshell." You have to
That's
know a
funny.
little bit about a
That's
lot of
quite a
stuff because
soundbite.
you might have to replace that boiler, and you're gonna need to know that you're gonna have to bring in a crane, and that's gonna cost you $12,000. You just
Oh
gotta
my
need to know those
gosh.
kinds of things.
Right. Wow. Okay. That's exciting. I'm looking forward to following that journey. And before we kind of wrap up, I'd like to get your thoughts and kind of vision for the future you'd like to see in doing the work with crisis management and doing the work that you're doing here. And then let everyone know where they can go to find you and learn more about you. And then we'll close up.
Sure. Oh my gosh, the future around crisis management. I would like to see a brighter future, that's for sure. Uh,
Amen.
I mean, this unfortunately, we have become, I think, desensitized to this topic. I once told a board that running a school, they were talking to me about running a school like a business. And I said, "You run a school like a business, but your product is a child. It's not a can of Coke, it's a child." And so there are things and nuances that you always have to keep in mind. What's best for children? What's best for children? Yes, turn a profit, but you're dealing with children, right? And I don't know what the answer is to this, but I personally, and please, again, I don't want to get political by any means, but this is my personal thought on this. We have to do better. We have to do better. I don't know what the future is, but we have to do better. And you're starting to see some kinds of things, right? From the Covenant shooting, Voices for a Safer Tennessee, more from that. I don't know if you're familiar with that organization. And again, by no means am I affiliated with it. It's just an organization, a grassroots organization that came to be after that shooting of moms that want the world to do better. And they're having great conversation now around what that looks like with legislature. They're bipartisan. They just want the world to do better, and they're taking actionable steps to do that. So I would love to see a little bit more of that, to be honest with you.
Well, it seems like you're supporting in more ways than one there. That's powerful. That's a
Yeah.
good example of
For this
community and
business, I hope this business becomes the benchmark for women who want to be in these roles. And I hope women don't get discouraged and don't want to be in these roles because what women essentially do is we think we have to have a bazillion degrees and we have to have all the credentialing and all the knowledge base before we slide into a role. I'm going to tell you right now, having been a head of school and having been had held different administrative positions in schools, you're never going to know it all. You just need the good team that knows it all, right? But you're never going to know it all. Every day you're putting out fires, every day is different. So don't limit yourself by not launching yourself into these roles. You have something to give to this community. And so I encourage any woman out there listening to me, take the leap, fill out the resume, make sure it's short up, send in the application, hone your interview skills. I can help you with all of that and just go for it. And I hope that Leadership Educational Solutions really does become that benchmark of like, oh, where can I turn to for guidance and support in that?
excellent. Let's make it happen, right? And I know there's many female heads and educational leaders, directors that listen to this show I talk to on a very regular basis, and many men who are in absolute support of female leaders and female educational leaders. So let's spread the word and make sure that this gets to those folks. And with that being said, Leigh, I'm so happy that we were able to have you on the show. Where can folks go to learn more about you and what you're doing?
Well, they can go to my website. It's leadhershipeducationalsolutions.com. If you want to reach out to me directly, it's just Leigh, Leigh, at leadhershipeducationalsolutions.com.
Perfect. Okay. Well, thanks again. And I'll look forward to following and supporting your work.
Thank you. I'm also on LinkedIn, so you can find me on LinkedIn as well. We're slowly out there. We're slowly getting out there, but we're excited for the future and what's to come. We really are. And also, Karl, I also want to kind of end on the fact that there are a lot of men that believe in women leadership. Personally, I have experienced that. Every mentor I've ever had in my life was a man, and they were behind me 100%. And so, again, I don't, it's just, as a woman, there are different nuances. And I think having gone through that and experienced that myself as a woman, I think I have a little bit to offer in that field. But by no means, I don't think anybody believes that men are behind us. They are.
Good, absolutely. And case in point, right? I'm
Exactly.
happy to support your work. So, and I see there's an absolute place and importance for it that's immense. So, excellent. All right. Well, then until the next time, thank you so much for being on the show. Have a great one. We are grateful for your support of the Help 100 Schools movement. Thank you for listening and for showing up. Now, please help us multiply the impact by reviewing, sharing, commenting, and staying engaged with us and our mission to help 100 schools grow. The future of education is in your hands. To learn more about today's topics, how to be more involved, and how to access our free resources designed to aid in your own mission, go to help100schools.com.